Okay, so thank you everyone for being here. My name is Keren Shatzman. I'm working at Wikimedia Israel, the Israeli chapter. And today I'd like to talk about a collaboration that we started recently with the Israeli Film Archive. It's about sharing a newsreel collection. So the Israeli Film Archive at the Jerusalem Cinematheque have a beautiful collection of newsreels. Have a look at their website here. So these are various newsreels, which, if you don't know, before the invention of television was a very popular thing. Short films that documented current events and were shown at movie theaters before the main theater, before the main show. In Israel, there were especially two big productions. These were Carmel films and Geva films, but the collection also holds some private films. The earliest film I saw was from 1890, and then these productions continued until the early 80s. Of course, this was common in other countries as well, but with broadcast television, they kind of died out. In Israel, Israeli broadcasting started just in 1968. So these continued through the 70s, and then in the 80s, they kind of died together with the TV starting to be the mainstream news media.
Keren,
they have about, yes?
Sorry for interrupting. Some people are reporting that your sound is breaking, and it is a little bit indeed. Maybe you can try with the camera off, including yours. I think that could optimize the collection. Can we try it?
Okay. Is it better now?
For me, so far, it is.
Sorry? Okay, so I hope this is fine. So the films were made mostly in, well, the early 20th century in Mandatory Palestine, and then later in what became the State of Israel. Our friends from the archives have done a tremendous job at not just digitizing the films, but also tagging them and enriching them with a lot of information like coordinates and people and events depicted date or year. And they are organized by topic. So if you go on their website, you can see, like, you can look at fashion or music, but you can also click on the search bar, and then you'll have the option of browsing things geographically. So just looking in an area and then seeing which films were filmed in that area. In fact, if you zoom out a bit, you can also see that the collection is in Israel, but also countries. You can also browse by person. So, you can find interesting people that visited Israel or other events that happened here, like the Pope visiting Israel. And fortunately, also, most of the narration on these films has now subtitles in English. So this is really also a historical resource. So in our collaboration, we thought of sharing all this metadata on Wikidata. And when I had a look, it appears like, at least I couldn't find similar work that has been done before. So if you look at the newsreel item, this is actually an instance of a film genre. So this talks, it's like a subclass of news. It's said to be the same as Kino Journal. It has a commons category linked to it, which shows the actual newsreels. But if you look at items that are an instance of newsreel, then these are actually the productions that produce these newsreels, or the name of the newsreel series. So this is a series in the Netherlands, this one is in Poland, and this one in Germany. So many countries had this kind of thing. But only two items that I found were actual newsreels. So if you look, for example, at this item here. So this is an instance of a newsreel, but it has properties like a title, and a main subject here is the train wreck that happened in this year at this area in Switzerland, and so on and so on. So this is the only item, or I've just found one item like this one, that actually talks about the newsreel itself, like a segment of a newsreel. You can see it's published in the Schweizer Filmwochenschau. So this was the film series in which it was published. And if you had a look before, it didn't appear in the list of items that were an instance of a newsreel. And that's because of the names aren't correct. So the Schweizer Filmwochenschau is actually listed as an instance of a film series. And other items like Universal Newsreel, which was a very popular one, doesn't even have a P31 statement. So seeing the state of these items and this topic, I thought that this is the time to do some outreach work and to see if there are people who are interested in working and defining and standardizing the ontology of newsreels on Wikidata. So for example, think about how to define the newsreel series and how to define the film itself, the segment itself. And then to think about what are the relevant properties and the statements and the ontology of this whole issue. Then, of course, you might want to sort out what's already there. And then here in Israel, we would like to upload accordingly the metadata of the IFA collection. So this is basically a civic, but I think it's really something that could be interesting for a lot of people in the community. And it's also something that's best done collectively, and that we can use the experience of other people and their know-how of what would be the best practice for these kind of collections. Now you may ask, why should I be interested in this? Well, I think if you're interested in audiovisual cultural heritage preservation, then we would like to hear from you, your thoughts about things like this, because here we're talking about newsreels, but it could be relevant to similar kind of collections that are maybe not newsreels, but similar in other aspects. So as I said, this collection specifically has value beyond Israel, and it could really be interesting for other communities. And finally, I think that if we standardize this collectively, then this help future projects of other communities. Could be a kind of showcase of how these kind of collections should be uploaded and shared. So if you have any interest in getting to know this project and working together, email me or write me on one of your favorite Wikimedia platforms. Thank you.